Suppose you were magically transported to a spot in Texas. Your first impression would be remarkably diverse depending on where you land. You would be in one of 10 large but distinctly different ecoregions. The natural world of Texas is what this podcast is all about. We're Robert and Karen Benson. We select or write all material for each podcast episode and produce the audio that makes it possible. We hope you'll learn something new each time you listen. Most of all, we hope you'll enjoy what you hear. Have you ever seen a Texas tortoise? It's an extraordinary Texas animal found nowhere else in the United States. Karen writes about her encounter with a Texas tortoise on her small farm in the brush country.
Recently, while walking the west side of our farm, I saw a brown lump on the trail ahead. It was about the size and color of a cow patty, but we don't have cattle on the farm. As I got closer, I could see it was dome-shaped, unlike the typical flat cow patty. What in the world is that? I began to have an idea. Hot dog! I think that is an animal, I said and hurried toward it. About this time, the brown lump moved, but very slowly. It had to be a turtle of some kind. A turtle? Out here on this dry caliche ridge, sparsely covered with brush? No way. Turtles need water, don't they? However, it wasn't exactly a turtle, it was a Texas tortoise. Tortoises are dry land members of the turtle family and are related to the giant, 200-pound tortoises on the Galapagos Islands. Texas tortoises are much smaller cousins, much like the Galapagos tortoises in body shape and behavior. Both the Texas tortoise and the Galapagos tortoise are vegetarians. Neither can pull its entire body back into the protective shell. But they can get pretty close, and the scaly front legs block the entrance from predators. I got close up and personal with the tortoise on my trail. I got down on my hands and knees to take a picture. She was female because the forked gular scoot was relatively short. She pivoted away from me. I scampered to the other side to try to photo her with her head extended. I realized she was about 7 inches long and must be quite mature. She may be my age. She and I had a lot in common. Over 60 years of age, a bit banged up, with dark beady eyes, and a definite similarity in the texture of our throat skin. She pivoted away from me again, and I swear, I heard her sigh. The books say they hiss, but this sounded like a sigh. The same sigh I had uttered often as a teacher. It was the sigh of resigned exasperation. We must have had a lot in common. As she walked off into the brush, I noticed how different her back legs were from her front ones. They are described as elephantine. Indeed, the back legs are like stumps that do little more than hold up the back end of the beast. The front legs are powerful, curved, and tipped with long claws. These legs are perfect for digging. A Texas tortoise digs out a small scrape, called a pallet, under a prickly pear cactus or bush. The tortoise spends the night, the heat of the day, and most of the winter resting on this pallet. It ventures out to feed on the pads, flowers, and fruit of the prickly pear during the cooler hours of the summer mornings and evenings. In the colder parts of the year, the tortoises hibernate on their pallets or in slightly deeper excavations. They might come out on milder, sunny days to get a bite to eat. There are 4 species of tortoises native to North America. All 4 belong to the genus Gopherus and thus are sometimes called gopher tortoises. The Florida species is most likely to excavate a shelter like a gopher, and Florida tortoises' burrows can be 35 feet long. The desert tortoise occupies the Mojave and Sonoran deserts of the southwestern part of the United States and northern Mexico. Desert tortoises usually burrow only deep enough to cover their shells, 10 to 14 inches long, but some burrows may be several feet long. Since temperatures in these deserts can reach 140 degrees, it is estimated that desert tortoises spend 95% of their lives underground. The bullstone tortoise of north-central Mexico is the largest of the 4 species, and it can reach a length of 18 inches. Scientists did not discover it until 1959 when biologists in the Bolson de Mapamay Chihuahuan Desert visited a nearby ranch. They noticed chickens eating grain out of a large tortoise shell. The local ranchers told them it was the shell of La Tortuga Grande del Desierto, the big turtle of the desert. When it was determined to be a new species and a declining one, the Mexican government set up a preserve, the Mapamay Biosphere Reserve, to protect it and other rare fauna and flora. Even so, the Bolson tortoise is still threatened by loss of habitat. The smallest tortoise of the four is our Texas native, the Texas tortoise. Its range extends from Tamaulipas, Coahuila, and Nuevo Leon in Mexico north to San Antonio. It simply must have an arid habitat. A Texas tortoise will likely die of respiratory illnesses if taken out of its range, say to the more humid Houston area. You may know about the pet turtle craze of the 1950s. Every 5-and-dime store would offer baby turtles, usually red-eared sliders, and tortoises for sale. With your new pet, you could get a turtle bowl complete with a tiny plastic palm tree. Sadly, most of these pets died. And since most of the tortoises were collected from the wild, the pet trade seriously impacted the population. For this reason, in 1977, Texas tortoises were put on the threatened list. You cannot take, transport, or possess the tortoise without special permits. You shouldn't pick one up if you find one. The frightened creature will likely void its bladder in a last-ditch measure to get you to let it go. While this behavior is only a nuisance to you, it can spell death to the tortoise. Tortoises get nearly all the water they need from the plants they eat. They store water in their urinary bladder and metabolically draw upon this water as needed. Their urine is usually excreted as a thick white paste. If you frighten it into urinating away its water supply, you may condemn it to death by dehydration. If you are in their habitat, please think of the tortoise napping on its pallet under a clump of prickly pear. This animal is superbly adapted to the Texas sun, dryness, sandy caliche soils, and native plants. It cannot survive in subdivisions, on tennis courts, or even in areas cleared of brush for pastures or fields. Do we need more concrete, lawns, or exotic plants? Let's try to save some of our natural habitat for the Texas tortoise, our unique brush country resident.